Hi everyone, Courtney Grunholz back at the Book Nook again with my 90s YA teen literature. I want to say horror because it's mostly like thriller stuff, and I guess they'd be more considered horror writers, as some materials say. But I'm still here with my collection that I have, and so continuing with YA teen horror authors. I have, of course, more books here. My next bit of books that I'm going to talk about, these are all books by author Richie Tankersley Cusick, who is a woman. I guess I'll start with the first two books that I ever had. I am a huge Buffy fan. I love the TV series. It was my favorite show when it came out in 1997. And I watched the first 3 seasons, like, completely through when it was first on TV. Around the time the 4th season came around, about 4th or 5th season, I'd catch a couple of episodes of it on TV. And when it moved to a different network around season 6 and 7, I really didn't get to watch it a lot. But so the first 3 seasons I watched completely through. And I ended up liking the show because in 1992 there was a movie released called Buffy the Vampire Slayer with the late Luke Perry, and Christy Swanson played Buffy. I don't think at the time they had her with a last name of Buffy Summers, but maybe they did. And when the movie was released, Joss Whedon's screenplay was a lot darker than what the 1992 movie became. They wanted it more light and comedic, so he ended up kind of actually leaving it, although the couple that produced the movie ended up helping a little bit on the TV show, maybe producing it again. But then we all know the TV show was a lot darker to the way Joss Whedon wanted it. And he actually was able to put out the way that he wanted Buffy in the Dark Horse Comics retelling of it called The Origin, which took his original script and turned it, into a comic book. So I saw the movie in 1992. Now, I loved it, but I was like maybe I just turned like 9, so I was like 8 or 9 in 1992 when it came out, because I don't remember exactly when it came out. But I loved the movie. And another thing that I got, again, it says in here it's from the middle school library, but I actually got it during a book fair. So I never stole books from the library. Sometimes I was tempted to, but I didn't. So what this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer novelization of the 1992 movie. It's novelized by Richie Tankersley Cusick, based on Joss Whedon's screenplay, so it is a lot darker. Of course, it has a couple pictures from the movie on the front, one of like the post pictures on the back. But so this is the novelization written by Richie Tankersley Cusick. So I bought it at a book fair, and of course the first printing of this was from August of 1992, so that's probably the time it came out. So I was about 9 if it came out after May. So, but yeah, so this is the novelization of the 1992 Buffy movie from Joss Whedon's original script. So I read it and I saw that it was different from the movie that we saw. But so I fell in love with the way Richie Tankersley Cusick wrote this. She also wrote a novelization for a couple of like the books that came out when the TV series came out, that would do like novelizations of the scripts of the episodes. And I think she did the novelization for the first 2 episodes of Buffy, Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest, and also for the Halloween episode from season 2. So, this is the first time I ever read anything by Richie Tankersley Cusick, and like I said, I like the way how she wrote the novelization, and so it's a good combination of where it's, Joss Whedon's words and her, description of everything physical going around it. So the words of the characters aren't hers, but the way she describes the inner thoughts and, everything going around, I appreciate it very much. So it was the first time I ever read anything by her. And the second thing I got, again, at a book fair, was I saw this novel, and it's from October of 1993. So when I saw that it was written by Richie Tankersley Cusick, and it's just her own writing, it is copyrighted just to her, I got the novel Help Wanted by Richie Tankersley Cusick from the book fair. And it's about a girl named Robin who gets a job working at the home of this rich, smarmy guy that she goes to school with named Parker Swanson. So she's going to be working for his grandfather, organizing all of the antique books that belonged to Parker's stepmother. Her name was Lilith, and she claimed to be a medium who could talk to the dead. And I think she ended up getting married to Parker's father because she said that she could talk to Parker's mom, his late wife, and they ended up marrying each other. And Parker has a stepsister named Claudia who she's haunted by the ghost of her mother, and she claims that her mother was an evil woman. So Robin gets entangled in all of this. But she starts to believe Claudia when everybody thinks that Claudia's a little weird. Her stepbrother and her grandfather. I think the Parker's dad, her stepfather, is away, so we don't get much interaction from him. But there's a maid that works at the home, and there's also this sleazy groundskeeper who works there, and so Robin gets entangled in all of this, and it's a really interesting read, and there was kind of like a little bit of a twist at the end, so I guess you get like a red herring, and then the twist, it's a character that maybe you didn't think was going to be, a part of this, but so I really liked her writing style, so I've been trying to get some other books that Richie Tankersley Cusick has written, and so I have these other books. The only other one that I've read from the ones that I have is after I found this copy at a peddler's mall, or some people call it a flea market, some people call it a peddler's mall, but I found it at the peddler's mall, and it's one of the point horror books that Richie Tankersley Cusick wrote, and it's The Lifeguard. It still has its little sticker on there. I got it for 60 cents. And it was in pretty good condition when I got it. So there's a price in here that says that it was like $4. So I guess somebody was going to sell it for like $4. I'm not really sure, but this was from 1988, so one of her like earlier writings. A girl named Kelsey gets invited to Beverly Island, and there's a note underneath her pillow, and it's supposed to be from this girl who is missing. And because there have been a lot of people drowning around the island, and so of course there's supposed to be a lifeguard that's, evil and dangerous, and so they make him menacing on the cover, and so like I said, they always have these things with point horror books, like the lifeguard, the perfume, the yearbook, the accident, just taking like these innocuous kind of words and like turning them into like this whole plot. So it's been a while since I read it, but so this is like one of like the first, maybe not the actual first, but one of the first things that Richie Tankersley Cusick wrote, and it's actually pretty good. I just haven't read it in a while, but the ones that I have here that I have not read yet, and hopefully I'll get to reading them. This one I found at a thrift store. I got it for 50 cents, and it's Overdue by Richie Tankersley Cusick. So I love how like all the font from her stories, later ones, kind of have this, they're all the same, like this big blocky kind of print on the side, and so that's Overdue by Richie Tankersley Cusick. Two of these I got used from Amazon, and they're in pretty good condition. I have The Mall by Richie Tankersley Cusick. So, and I also have, this was not like a point horror one, but this is Vampire by Richie Tankersley Cusick. So, anything with vampires, I'm going to grab it. So I guess it's supposed to be a little bit more darker and more adult than like a point horror book, because point horror ones were kind of like Fear Street books. So this is from 1991, so I haven't read it yet. And this one I purchased off Amazon. It's completely new, like freshly printed. And it's a little bigger in size, so I had to pay a little bit more for it. I paid like $15 for it, so it was kind of worth it, though, because if I find a copy of one of these authors and I can find a new copy and it's not too much, then I'll buy it. But the reason it costs this much is the size of it, so it's not a little small paperback. It's paperback, but it's a little bit bigger. But this is Starstruck by Richie Tankersley Cusick, so it's a little bit bigger. So that's kind of why I figured it was as expensive as it was, and it is like completely new. It's like white, like very white. So there are plenty more Richie Tankersley Cusick books that I want to get, and but those are the ones that I have so far. And so I'm trying to keep everything by the same author and the same kind of space. So I guess the next one that I will mention is, of course, L.J. Smith is popular for writing The Vampire Diaries, which got turned into a show on the CW. But back when I used to read the Fear Street books by R.L. Stine, they would have advertisements about other book series in the back. And they always had this one series of books by L.J. Smith advertised, and it was called The Forbidden Game. And so it was a trilogy of books. So, but it was always advertised in the back of the Fear Street books. And I never got a chance to get it, because I don't think I ever actually saw it on sale, because I used to go to B. Dalton when B. Dalton was around before it closed, and then afterwards I just went everywhere. There was like Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Borders, Walden Books, and then getting books at Walmart, and I just never found it. And then I watched videos for Hey Lil Thrifter on YouTube when she went through her Point Horror collection, because these actually were books in the Point Horror series, apparently, and she had copies of the trilogy with the UK cover art, so I knew that there were books, but I guess I just could never find them. So, but I guess apparently when she started getting really big for, the Vampire Diaries being on TV, and then she had her other series of books that she wrote, the Night World books, they started, bringing back her older writing. They started bringing out, like, the original Vampire Diaries that were written around the same time, like in the, mid 1990s. So I eventually found the Forbidden Game trilogy at Books A Million, and I bought it. So it's a trilogy, and the 3 books were The Hunter, The Chase, and The Kill, and it's all based around a girl named Jenny who buys this strange game from this young mysterious man named Julian. So Jenny, her boyfriend Tom, and a group of their friends get together to play this game, and it goes through a trilogy of books. So I have not read it yet, but again, it was always advertised in the back of Fear Street books. So when I eventually saw that they had like an omnibus collection of all 3 books, I went ahead and bought it. So because they were always advertised in the back of those Fear Street books, and I never got a chance to ever finding them. So I am trying to find like the original Vampire Diary books by L.J. Smith to read, and I always can find like the first one and the 3rd one, but I can never find the one that's in the middle. So I'll eventually try to get those once I read through this. Sometimes if I get just a book, like one book by an author, after I read it, if I like the story, it's intriguing, I like the writing style, I'll end up going back and finding more, which is why I have like my Richie Tankersley Cusick books, and because I like the writing style, so I want to go back and read more. So, but it's the Forbidden Game trilogy by L.J. Smith. So I have that one. And my next author, just because I have a lot of books by this one author, so we'll go to the next author that I have here. Of course, when the movie I Know What You Did Last Summer came out in 1997, I had no idea that it was based on a book. And Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream, he worked on it. And so he interpreted the text of author Lois Duncan into writing I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I Know What You Did Last Summer is, it's a teen slasher kind of film. But the original book of it was actually written back in, I think, the 1970s. Usually it has like an original thing in these reprints. But, so I have I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lois Duncan. I found it one time at a peddler mall and bought it. I think I got into reading it, and I don't know, I ended up getting rid of it, but I ended up finding this copy at Books A Million, who now take used books, and it's a used book in pretty good condition. I got it for $1.25. But, of course, it's not as slashery as the movie. So, 1978 is when it was originally written by Lois Duncan. And for a long time in Lois Duncan's career, she wrote like these thriller kind of books for teenagers. At the end of the 1980s, her daughter was murdered, and they never found out who killed her daughter. And so she kind of shied away from writing stuff like that for a while, and she actually wrote like Hotel for Dogs, which also got turned into a movie. So she changed her writing style away from the thriller genre for a while because it was probably too painful to write books like that. So her daughter, Caitlin, was murdered. So, and of course, Lois Duncan has passed away, but they never solved the murder of her daughter. But she wrote a book about it called "Who Killed My Daughter," and it's just really sad, but it's kind of humanizing that, you know, somebody who was writing all these like thriller things decided to step away from writing about things like that because of a personal tragedy in her life. And I can understand that, where I'm a big horror movie fan, and you know, when things happen, like when Columbine happened and stuff like that, stepping away from stuff like that for a while can be the best thing. But you know, so she wasn't a horror writer, she was a thriller writer. And so like when the movie came out, she didn't like how it was changed to being so much more gory. So but I can personally understand that. But I Know What You Did Last Summer in a novelization. The one that I was most interested in reading that kind of got me into wanting to read more Lois Duncan stuff is Summer of Fear. It got turned into a made-for-TV movie in the 70s, starring Linda Blair and directed by Wes Craven. So it was interesting, and of course, like I said, I like horror movies and thriller movies and stuff. So when I found out about it, also trying to go through, you know, collecting as many Wes Craven movies as I could that, you know, were not like Scream or A Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I found this movie, Summer of Fear, sometimes called Stranger in Our House, and so it was written in 1976. I think the TV movie came out in like 77, 78. But it's about a girl named Rachel. Her family takes in her cousin Julia after her aunt and uncle are killed in a car accident. And it seems like Julia wins praise from everybody around Rachel. Her mom, her dad, her brothers, her boyfriend, her best friend, and so she thinks something is wrong with Julia, something really weird, and she thinks that perhaps Julia is a witch. So, and in the book, they have something happen with Rachel's dog ends up attacking Julia and biting her, and they end up having to put the dog down. In the movie version, since Linda Blair was big into horse riding, they changed it from a dog to a horse. And but you know, weird things happen in, you know, her home. Like one day she wakes up before this big dance, and there are all these red splotches and like big giant oily zits on her face, and her boyfriend ends up taking Julia to the dance instead of her, and so it's like that kind of jealousy thing, but she thinks there's actually something supernatural behind it, and so when I saw the movie, I thought I would read the book, and I now have the book and the movie of Summer of Fear, so it's a really good book, and of course Lois Duncan's writing has been brought to the big screen with I Know What You Did Last Summer, but they also made TV movies. They made a TV movie in the 70s about Summer of Fear. In the 90s, they had 2 TV movies that were based on Lois Duncan books, and one I got off Amazon, and the other one I got for $2.25 at Books A Million. But they are Killing Mr. Griffin and Gallows Hill. Gallows Hill I got from Amazon. It got turned into a TV movie called I've Been Waiting For You. And, of course, Killing Mr. Griffin got turned into a movie called Killing Mr. Griffin. So, I got this for $2.25. So, it's just very simple. I haven't read it yet, but they plan to scare their English teacher. They didn't mean to kill him. So, there's that. So, Killing Mr. Griffin. And then Gallows Hill is about a girl named Sarah who moves to a town, and she is able to know things about people by looking in like this crystal paperweight, so like a crystal ball, but she knows things about people. And this town that she moves to, they still believe in witchcraft. They actually burned another woman named Sarah a long time ago at the stake. So she kind of reveals about what happened like these hundreds of years ago when they burned this witch at the stake. And so it causes a bunch of the new kids, the kids in town, to not like the new kid in town for all these things that she can apparently see. And they believe that maybe she is the reincarnation of the witch. So, sounds kind of complicated, but I remember watching the TV movie and I liked it. So, it also has like suggestions and stuff in the back for further reading about witchcraft and witches, talking about the Salem witch trials, and forms about books about ESP and past life regression. So pretty heavy-handed. And another book that I got off Amazon that I have yet to read is The Third Eye by Lois Duncan. So Karen gets visions, and a young policeman asks her for help on finding some children that have been kidnapped. So, again, very, very heavy-handed stuff. And again, this is also, before Lois Duncan went away from the thriller genre for a while. And can't remember how early this one was. So, I guess if I can't share too much information about the plot, I can share what I can find about the book. So this is from 1984. So, other books by Lois Duncan that I'm interested in getting eventually are Down a Dark Hall, Daughters of Eve, Don't Look Behind You, and there's also Locked in Time, Stranger with My Face, and A Gift of Magic. So those are just a couple of the other books by Lois Duncan that you might be interested in reading. All of them more of the thriller genre. So I have my books by Lois Duncan that I like. And this next author, I have not read anything yet, but I kind of wanted to get into reading this next author because some time ago, like on forums, I read that if you want to go stepping stones of like thriller and horror writers, start with R.L. Stine, then step up to Christopher Pike, and then step up from Christopher Pike to Stephen King. So I never read any Christopher Pike books that were put out, but I always saw them when I would go and buy Fear Street books at B. Dalton, and I guess I wasn't sure if I, should read Christopher Pike books. And then, of course, when I went to high school, they had all these Stephen King books in the library. And, by that time, it was kind of harder to find Christopher Pike books for some reason. But now, I'm going to try and start reading Christopher Pike books. Because, they always said it was a middle ground going from R.L. Stine to Stephen King, because a lot of the Christopher Pike books, they're written about teenagers, but they deal with more adult themes. They deal with like drugs and sex, and those weren't in Fear Street books. And of course, drugs and sex are like in Stephen King books, but they're also a lot more, gory and visceral horror and sometimes like body horror types of things. So I never got around to reading, Christopher Pike books. So I've been collecting them, and what I have here is Christopher Pike books from, most of them are from Amazon. So yeah, a majority of them are from Amazon. So I'm also waiting for another Christopher Pike book to come in the mail. I ordered it from Half Price Books, Fall into Darkness, which it got made into a made-for-TV movie. I believe on NBC. That's where like lots of like made-for-TV movies were from. They were mostly from like NBC all the time growing up when I was younger. Like movies I could sit up and my mom would let me watch, and they'd go like past 11 o'clock, and I could stay up that late. So, but I might not get to all of these books in this video, and if I don't, I'll just continue next time. So a lot of these that I have here, they're omnibus collections of Christopher Pike books, so they're like 2 or 3 books together. So I'm just gonna go by a little bit of size. I have Road to Nowhere by Christopher Pike. Of course, this is like a reprint from Simon Pulse. So this is not from, the original. So it's Road to Nowhere by Christopher Pike. He wrote a book called The Last Vampire, and it had many books that came out after it. So, and of course, with, after Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then the Vampire Diaries and True Blood and stuff, I guess they started bringing back those last vampire books that he wrote. So, and they started collecting them in this collection called Thirst. So, I have Thirst number 1 and Thirst number 2, which have the first 6 books in the Last Vampire series that were written in the early mid-90s by Christopher Pike. So the first book was The Last Vampire, followed by Black Blood, and then followed by Red Dice. And then the next 3 books were Phantom, which was The Last Vampire number 4, Evil Thirst, and Creatures of Forever. So these were the first 6 books that he wrote. He started to, write more Last Vampire books in this Thirst collection. I'm not going to get those yet until I've read through the first 6 books. And like I said, these were the first 6 books released around the time, Fear Streets were out. So, but they've got them now in these new collections. So, and kind of like almost Twilighty, I guess. So I guess they're trying to appeal to anybody who's, read, Twilight and likes the Vampire Diaries and, Buffy and True Blood and, just capitalizing on the vampire craze, because who doesn't like reading about vampires? So, I have those. This To Die For is 2 novels. It's Slumber Party and Weekend, written by Christopher Pike. So really, really early Christopher Pike books. 1985 Slumber Party and 1986 Weekend by Christopher Pike. So 2 of those in this little reprint. This one's actually a Point one, so these were Point horror books. So these are actually from Point Publishing. So most of these are all Simon Pulse books, but this is another 2-book mashup of Spellbound and See You Later by Christopher Pike. So 2 books in one. Next is Chain Letter, which has 2 books, Chain Letter and Chain Letter The Ancient Evil, combined together in this little omnibus reprint. And of course, one of Christopher Pike's most prominent books that he wrote was Remember Me, about a girl who gets murdered and ends up trying to solve her own murder. But there were 2 books released after that, so this is an omnibus collection of all 3 books. Remember Me, The Return, and Remember Me, The Last Story. So, all 3 of them in this one omnibus collection. And Christopher Pike had another set of books. They were part of, I think it was, it's called Until the End, and it was like, I can't remember the name of the trilogy, like Friends something, but there were 3 books in it. The Party, The Dance, and The Graduation. I just went ahead and ended up getting this because I had so many other Christopher Pike books. I figured I'd give them a read. So I have those. And then when I was in Louisville visiting my family, we went to a Half Price Books there, and in the clearance section, I found 2 Christopher Pike books that I already had. So when Chain Letter 2, The Ancient Evil, came out, this was what the original looked like. So it was only for like $1. So I bought it. And they also had The Last Vampire 5, Evil Thirst, for $1. So I bought that. And even though I already had them. And then they had The Last Vampire 3, Red Dice, and the reason I bought it was because it's one of those step-back art covers. So, nice little step-back art. Try not to get in the light so you can see it. So even though I already had 2 of the Last Vampire, these 2 Last Vampire books, and a collection of both Chain Letter and Chain Letter 2, The Ancient Evil, they were only for like $1, so I bought them. And if I ever go to like Half Price Books in the future, and I see these books and I already have them, I will probably go ahead and get them. And if I ever get all 2 of those books, or I get the originals of these omnibus collections, then I will probably end up getting rid of the omnibus collections and keeping these originals. So, because this is like original art, and so these 3 Christopher Pike books I already have in these omnibus collections. But like I said, if I find them, then I will get them. I will keep those and get rid of the other ones. Of course, I have 2 other reprints that I got off Amazon. of Die Softly and Bury Me Deep by Christopher Pike. So, and like this and Road to Nowhere, if I was ever at Half Price Books and I saw the originals there, I would probably get those and then eventually like get rid of these. But so this one even says on the side that it's a teen thriller. So, and so of course all these reprints were from Simon Pulse, and all like the originals were from Archway paperbacks, like the Fear Street books. So, one book that I just got from Half Price Books, like I said, I'm waiting for Fall into Darkness from Half Price Books that I ordered. Another one that I got that was really hard for me to find on Amazon that I found on Half Price was Whisper of Death by Christopher Pike. So, I mean, you can find them used on Amazon, but some are like really expensive. I know Fall into Darkness, Whisper of Death, and another one, Monster by Christopher Pike. They wanted like really, really outrageous prices for like good condition books. So, and I haven't been able to find any like used copies that were cheap. But I found one on Half Price Books. So, so like I said, I haven't read any of these Christopher Pike books yet. So I'm working on building my collection though, and all of these other ones, of course, I got off of Amazon. Oh no, wait. Now that I'm going through it, I did not get this one off Amazon. It's another one that I found at Half Price Books in Louisville in the clearance section for $1. The Eternal Enemy. So I have that one. All the rest of these are from Amazon, used. There is Last Act by Christopher Pike. Witch by Christopher Pike. The Immortal. Trying to like not get this glare on my covers. So, and The Wicked Heart. So, and some of these like Christopher Pike and the title are like raised, and the others are just like flat. But so, and there's a bunch of other ones that I will eventually get, through Amazon or Half Price Books. A couple of other books that I want to get. Like I said, I'm going to try and find Monster for a reasonable price as a used book. I don't want to pay like tons of money for a used book. So, but Monster, Give Me a Kiss, and The Midnight Club are a few other Christopher Pike books that I plan to get in the future. But, so that is that on those. What I have left to talk about for my YA teen fiction 90s flashback is, of course, Fear Street and a couple of other books written by R.L. Stine, who is probably my most favorite author, since he is the reason I started reading these books in the first place. So I have a bunch of those, and I also have some Babysitters Club books. So I guess next time we're going to be delving into my Babysitters Club R.L. Stine Fear Street collection. So until I see you next time, wish me luck. I'm still waiting for that background check for the job that I went for an interview last time to go through, and as soon as the background check comes back, they should be hiring me to come in for like a final interview. So until I see you next time, wish me luck, and I hope to see you back here at the Book Nook in the future. So, until then, of course, have a good day, everybody.